Good evening, and thank you all for joining us on Halloween Eve, so that we can tell you a little bit about some of the encounters that have occurred here at the club over the years. We think of this as our club, of course, but the fact of the matter is that we are allowed to share it with an array of spirits who live here at the club. And they are kind enough to have let us share their space with them. The stories about our spirits fall into two categories, and I'm going to talk about the first category, which is really stories about various spirits that are here at the club. The first one has to do with a watchman. Back in the day, and Dino Veronese has verified that this is true, there was an elderly Scottish gentleman who was employed as a night watchman. And he had one of those, what they call watchman clocks that you see in old movies. It was a round machine that he wore on a strap around his body. And he would patrol the club at night. And there was a key that he put into various stations that would record that he, in fact, had been where he was supposed to be at the time that he was supposed to be. Now, Dino Veronese tells us that, in fact, we did employ this gentleman. And I have read that in a book about haunted spaces in Brooklyn, that he has been seen continuing on his nightly rounds here in the club. And of course, this was back in the day when we used the entire building. Nobody, I believe, here has encountered him, but that seems to be a reliable story. The second story is a bit more fanciful, and I have to confess I have some doubts about it, but it's kind of a fun story. The book, The Ghosts of Brooklyn by L.V. Salazar, has reported the story of the mischievous leprechauns of the Montauk Club. And according to the story, Charles Pratt, Edwin Litchfield, Richard Schermerhorn, and Francis Kimball were surveying the lands that Litchfield owned between the Gowanus Canal and the park when they came upon a leprechaun in distress in 1890. Taking pity, they offered assistance, and in return, the grateful leprechaun granted to Pratt and Litchfield 3 wishes. It was not explained in the story why Kimball and Schermerhorn were left out, but they were. So according to the story, Pratt took one wish and wished for the success of his educational institution that he founded. And we, of course, know that Pratt Institute is a very successful educational institution today. And Litchfield wished for the successful development of all the lands that he owned, which, again, we know what happened to all of that, and he got his wish true. So not being able to split up the third wish, they agreed to deed it back to the leprechaun, who was immensely grateful. And what he decided that he wanted was to live in the company of his brother leprechauns for posterity. And so, according to this story, there are 3 mischievous leprechauns who are said to live on the roof of the Montauk Club, primarily in the back facing Plaza Street, where they gleefully amuse themselves by flinging shoes at passersby. Now, I don't want to risk the enmity of our leprechauns by doubting this story. However, there are some problems here. One, the story describes Pratt, Litchfield, and Schermerhorn and Kimball as founding members of the club. They were not. Pratt, Litchfield, and Schermerhorn were early members, but not founding members. Kimball, of course, was the architect of our building, and several years later became an honorary member. The other problem is that this happened allegedly in 1890. This building didn't lay their cornerstone until December 1889 and was not completed until 1891. And then the other problem is I live just up there with an apartment with a lovely view of the roof of the Montauk Club. And I have never seen any leprechauns, nor have I seen any hurled shoes. I would, however, be actually quite pleased if somebody hurled a shoe at me and proved the truth of this. There are, however, more frightening and more real encounters that our staff has actually had over the years here. And Susan Devine is going to share those with us.
On a cold December Saturday night a few years ago, as a wedding reception downstairs was winding down on the first floor, Carol Robles, our restaurant manager, sent 3 staff members upstairs to set up the second floor for Sunday brunch. The doors to the loggia were closed and locked. All 3 of the waitresses saw the same thing: a woman wearing a hat strolling along the loggia from Plaza Street side towards 8th Avenue. In a separate event, about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, a waitstaff person went upstairs to punch in. The club was closed and the doors locked. Members were not allowed in until 5:30. And as she came out of the pantry, she saw a woman walk into the men's room. As the waitress went to go downstairs, she saw the same woman ahead of her on the stairs and followed. But the woman disappeared. No one else had seen her or knew who she could possibly be. Antonio, our bartender, has had even more harrowing and personal experiences. Antonio has been with us for about 30 years, and when he started, as now, he would often close and be the last person in the club late at night. Antonio reports that he is not afraid of the dark, but he has a healthy respect for the afterworld. So he's going through the closing ritual, checking all the windows, making sure the lights are off, etc. He was in the middle of the 3rd floor dining room, starting to make his way to the stairs, when he felt someone touch him on the shoulder. Next thing he remembers, he was in the street, having no recollection of how he got there, locking the door or turning off the lights, which were in fact turned off. Another time was closing, going through the same ritual, checking the windows, turning off the lights. He exited, crossed 8th Avenue to the opposite sidewalk, and turned around to make certain the building was secure and all the lights were off. He saw a figure in the window waving at him. Since then, Antonio has never looked back at the clubhouse after he has left. Antonio's next 2 stories seem to be tales of 2 ghosts, a friendly spirit and perhaps a not so friendly one. Another time, he and a staff member had stacked some long tables vertically, leaning against a wall. He was checking the liquor cabinet when he felt something touch his shoulder. He stepped forward. At the same time, 2 of the tables fell forward and hit his shoulder hard. If Antonio hadn't moved, the tables would have fallen on his head, and he might have become one of our resident ghosts. Once, Antonio saw a reflection in a painting and saw someone turn his head. There was no one behind him. Back when we occupied the whole building, on New Year's Eve, some members would go upstairs to get a better view of the fireworks in Prospect Park. One year, Antonio decided to follow the group at a distance. There were no lights whatsoever on the upper floors, and Antonio was following someone or something in a light-colored plaid. The person beckoned Antonio to follow. He was about to take a step when someone or something stopped him. Antonio was about to step into the open elevator shaft. And so we understand why Antonio has a healthy respect for our resident spirits.
Everybody, I'm Freddie, your chef. As you all know, I'm pretty new here. And for something to happen that I saw, kind of weird, but here it goes. was standing in the kitchen, looking out towards the front door. I was talking to my wife, and I could have sworn I saw Kurt. I was only here maybe 2 days. Kurt come walking by into the front room where the piano was at. I told my wife, hey, wait a minute, let me go talk to Kurt real quick. When I went inside the room, all the lights were out. There was nobody in there. Went back into the kitchen. I said, that's weird. I said, I thought that was Kurt. I said, but there's nobody there. Went back into the kitchen, started working again, and I felt like somebody was staring at me from the other door, the one closest to the kitchen. I felt like somebody's head was like this. I looked, didn't see anything. About an hour later, my daughter, which is Nicole, came walking in from the front door. Can you tell them what you?
I was walking towards the stairs, and from the side of my eye, I could see someone standing there, but I wasn't trying to pay attention to it because I knew what it was. And I was like, nope, I'm good. I'm just gonna keep on walking. That's what I did. Yeah.
So a few days later, we decided to bring her up to meet Kurt and Sandra and Lila. They were in that front room over there. And I said, hey, this is Kurt, this is Sandra, this is Lila. So we're talking. So we all go back downstairs, and she comes out and asks me this.
I said, who was the other little kid in there, right, standing right near Kurt? And Freddie's like, no, there was only Lila. And I'm like, no, there was another kid in there. There was two. I know. And after that, it just blew my mind. Like, I know I have to like be careful. There's like ghosts in here. Yeah.
The other one when you the stairs, the shadow.
Oh, there was another. I was helping bring up the food, and I'm walking up the stairs, and that dark shadow again kept appearing. Like every time I would go up the stairs, and I'm like, oh man, the shadow really wants me to look that way. And I don't know. It's like every time I'm here, that shadow always like for some reason wants me to just look at it, and I'm just like, nope, nope. It's always right here near the stairs where the piano room is, and I'll be like, okay, you there.
I have a question for you, Mary. I know that you have a lot of information on this place. I heard a story of a man that committed suicide off a balcony. The cops will come to get him or something, and he jumped. Do you have any history on what he was wearing?
Okay, what Freddie is referring to is the Christopher Wagner story. It was a man who was living upstairs who attempted suicide. Everybody thought it was an accident. And then about a week later, the police came to arrest him for embezzling funds from his own firm. Now, I don't know exactly what he was wearing, but the news reports were that when the police came to arrest him, he was in bed, still recovering from the previous suicide attempt. So my best guess is that he was wearing pajamas.
Okay, what I saw it clearly. I couldn't make out the face, but I saw the clothes. And the man was wearing a long white shirt with the sleeves rolled up to here and black pants. And that's all I saw from him. I couldn't see his face or anything. And he just walked right into that room and he disappeared. So that's why I asked that story to see if maybe it's him.
Well, you know,
that he's still floating around.
yeah.
Literally floating.
Literally floating.
Yeah. That's my story. And like I said, and I knew nothing about the history of this place. When I first got here, I knew nothing about these ghosts or entities or anything like that. And for that to happen, I mean, there's something for real.
There's something for real. There's
Yeah.
something for real.
Yeah. Because no one had given me any information. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for
That's all.
sharing.
If anybody else has a story they want to share, let us know. We're going to compile them all together and maybe we'll make this an annual tradition. And if anyone gets a sense that the ghosts don't like it, please apologize for us and we'll stop doing it. So thanks, everybody. Happy Halloween.